Hello, in this video, I'll take you through our manufacturing template. Now this template is ideal for manufacturing businesses that pretty much assemble parts so they make finished goods from raw materials and parts. Now on the screen, I've opened up the template and it's powered with Microsoft Excel. So you need to have Excel installed on your computer. Now this can be a version from 2010, 2013, 2016, or so any version from 2010 upwards. Now once you open up the document, you arrive at the dashboard, and this holds 3 thumbnails to navigate to the 3 major sections of the template. We have the product section where you add your raw materials and products. We have the sales section where you enter product sales, and the report section which holds multiple template reports. Now in this video, I'm going to go through all the sections. I'm going to start with the first, which is the products. Now to open up any section, you simply click on the thumbnail. So notice as I click, it takes me to that section of the template. So now we're in the product section of the template. Now all sections have an identical formatting. In the upper left-hand corner, we have the section title, and this tells you at any point in time the section you're on. So notice it says product information, so you know this is where you list all the products you sell. Now by products, we mean finished goods. As a manufacturing business, you assemble raw materials to create products that you sell to end users. So this is where you list all the products that you sell. To the right of this, we have a button that says delete product. So this is used to delete any product from this database. Above this, we have our navigation pane, and this is made up of several labels. Each label represents a button to navigate to a particular section of the template. So notice as I click on materials, it takes me to the material section. Products, it takes me back to the product section. So each label represents a button to navigate to a particular section of the template. Below the button here, we have our data table, and this is where all the products you sell, so all your finished goods, will be listed. You notice the table is made up of 3 columns. We have the product name column. This is where you enter the name of the product. To the right of this, we have the balance in stock and the average selling price. Now the last 2 columns, that's the column, the second and the third, will be automatically generated by Excel. So at any point in time, the template will tell you the balance you have of every product and the average selling price using data from the template. Now to demonstrate the functionalities of this template, I'm going to assume that we're a fake bakery. We have fake recipes and we make cakes. So we have 2 products that we sell. We have our recipes, which are the raw materials that we need to produce the cakes, and the products we sell to the customers. We have 2 types of cakes. So to add the first product, I'm simply going to click on the field below product name. So you notice it's highlighted. Then I type the name of the first product. Now I'm entering generic names like vanilla cake. Once you're done, click on enter, and that product is stored. You notice the template tells us that we have 0 units of this product in store because we haven't produced any cake. To add another cake, you simply click on the field below and type the name of the cake and press enter. The template will automatically store it. So now we've listed the 2 products that we sell, and we have 0 units of both. So that's pretty much how you use this section. If you sell 20 products, you list the 20 products, you simply click on the field below, type the name, and you continue repeating the process until you've entered all the products you sell. Now to delete any product, I'm just going to enter a random value here. So random value, just for demonstration purposes. You notice we have a 3rd row now. Now if I want to delete this random value, all I need to do is to simply click on the random value, that's the text that I typed, and click on delete. The template is going to ask, am I sure I want to delete this product? It's equally going to tell me the name. If I do, I click yes, you notice that that row will be automatically deleted. So that's how you delete products and you add products. So we've covered the product section. Next, we go to the material section. To do that, we simply click on the label on the navigation pane. So notice as I click on materials, it takes me to that section of the template. So now we're in the material section of the template. You notice the label in the upper left-hand corner says raw material information. So you know this is where you document all raw materials. By raw materials, we mean all the inputs you use to create the finished products. Now, since this is a bakery, our raw materials will be the ingredients that make up our recipe. Now, to the right of this, we have the delete material button, which is used to delete any material from this section. We have our navigation pane at the top to go to other sections. And we have our data table at the bottom where we list all our materials. Now this works exactly the same as the product section. The only difference is that here we need to supply 2 values, the material name and the unit of measure. Now the unit of measure will vary depending on your business. So this is a bakery. Our first material will be flour, as we need flour to create both of our finished goods. Once I'm done entering flour, next I indicate the unit of measure. So let's assume that I buy my flour in kilogram, and my recipe also, I know the number of kilogram I need per unit of cake. Next, I indicate the second material, which would be baking powder. And the unit of measure here would just be units. Let's assume I buy my baking powder in sachets, so I know the number of teaspoons that make up one sachet. Next, we have butter. Let's assume I buy my butter in sticks, so I know the cost per stick of butter. Next, we have eggs, and I buy my eggs in units, so I know the cost per unit of egg. So you notice I'm just simply clicking on the field below the last entry and then type in a value, for instance, sugar. Next, I indicate the unit of measure, which will also be kg. Now, the last ingredient will be vanilla extract. And let's assume this is also in sachets, so I know the number of teaspoons per unit or per sachet that I buy. Now, these are all the inputs or all the ingredients needed to create the vanilla cake. Now, for the chocolate cake, we have the same. The only difference is chocolate, which I'm just going to list at the bottom. So you don't need to repeat materials. So if flour is needed for 3 of your products, you enter flour only once. So here you enter each material only once, indicating the material name and the unit of measure. So now I've successfully entered all the material that I need to create my 2 products. Now ignore the validity of this data because I know we need more ingredients to create an actual cake, but this is just for demonstration purposes, okay? So let's assume we've entered all the materials we need. Now we can move on to the next section. Now to delete is the same process. I'm just going to enter a random value. So let's assume I want to delete this row that I just added. All I need to do is to simply click on the text random value. You notice a border goes around it. Click on delete and then click on yes. And the template will automatically delete the random value. Okay, so now we've successfully covered the first 2 sections. The product section, where you list all your finished goods that you sell to the end user, and the material section, where you list all the raw materials you buy to create or to assemble your finished goods. Now, the next step, once you've completed these 2 sections, is to tell the template the recipe. So what's the building process? How many or what quantity of each material is needed to create 1 unit of your finished product? Now, to enter that, you make use of the requirements section. So this is where you're going to enter the required number of flour per vanilla cake, flour per chocolate cake. Okay, so to do that, you simply click on the label requirements, and it takes us to the requirements section of the template. So this is where you document the building process. You notice the label at the top says production requirements. So you tell the template the requirements per unit of production. To the right of this, we have 2 buttons. The first is to create a new production. The second is to delete an existing production. We have the navigation pane at the top and our table at the bottom where we list the production process. Now this table is made up of 3 columns and we're expected to supply values to the 3. So we first indicate the product, the material that is needed, and the quantity. So to add a production, we simply click on the button, New Production Build, and this pops up a form. First, we indicate the product that we're telling the template how it's being created. So I'm going to select vanilla cake. Notice it lists the 2 products I have in my product section. Once I click vanilla cake, next I need to tell the template how many materials are needed. So let's assume that 5 materials are needed to create vanilla cake. So 5 distinct ingredients. Once I'm done, I click on enter and the template will automatically insert 5 rows and affix the name vanilla cake in all the 5 rows. So all I need to do now is to simply enter the material that is needed for this vanilla cake. So the first material will be flour. Notice this is a drop-down list. Once I click, it's going to list all of my materials. So if there are 20 materials, they're all going to be listed in this drop-down list. First, I indicate flour. Next, I tell the template what is the quantity of flour that is needed to create 1 unit of vanilla cake. So let's assume that I need 500 grams. So that will be 0.5 because recall we measured in the material section, the flour is bought per kg. So since I need 500 grams for 1, so that will be 0.5. Next, I select the next ingredients, which will be baking powder. Recall this is in sachets. So let's assume that I use 1/4 of the sachet per serving. So that will be 0.25. Next, we indicate butter. So let's assume that I need 2 sticks of butter. Next, eggs. I need 3 pieces of eggs. And for sugar, I need 0.5, which would be 500 grams of sugar. So let's assume these are the 5 ingredients I need to create 1 unit of vanilla cake. So 1 piece of cake requires this quantity and these materials. So that's all. So the template has documented these values. To add another production, you simply click on the New Build button. It pops up a form. You select the product you want to build, which is chocolate cake. Let's assume this also requires 4, or let's make this 6. So let's assume that chocolate cake requires 6 materials. So we simply click on Enter, and it's going to list 6 rows. It's going to automatically fill the product name, chocolate cake, so you don't have to keep repeating that. All you need to do now is to list the 6 ingredients needed to create 1 unit of chocolate cake. So first we need flour, the same way we need 500 grams, that will be 0.5. Next, we need butter. This time around, we need 2 sticks of butter. We need chocolate, definitely, and let's assume that we need 2 sachets of chocolate. We need sugar. We equally need 500 grams of sugar. We need eggs, 2 eggs. And lastly, we need baking powder. And recall the baking powder is a sachet. Let's assume that we're going to use half of the sachet per unit of chocolate cake. So now I've successfully entered all the ingredients needed. Now to delete, you make use of the Delete Build button. You simply click on the row. For instance, let's assume we want to delete this blank row. So you simply click on any of the cells in the row, click Delete, click Yes. You notice that row is deleted. So that's how you document production requirements. You click the New Product Build button. It pops up a form. First, you indicate the product that you're telling the template the requirements to create 1 unit of that product. Next, you enter the number of materials. Now, number of materials is just to help Excel automatically insert it for you with the product name. Once you're done, you simply list all the materials with your respective quantities. So that's all. This section is covered. So we've told the template all the products we make, all the materials we use, and the quantity of each material needed per unit of our finished products. So now we can now go to the expenses section, because the next step now is, recall our materials are all 0. So we can't produce anything because we don't have stock. So what we need to do now is to enter our starting stock per material. So to do that, we simply go to the expenses section, and this works exactly the same way. So notice as I click expenses, it opens up the expense section of the template. So now we're in the expense section of the template. Now this is where you document all of your expenses. You notice at the top we have several buttons. So your indirect expenses, like your overhead, advertising, transportation, utilities, you make use of this button. It pops up a form. For your factory overhead, so these are direct expenses. So things like your equipment maintenance, your fuel, factory insurance, direct labor wages. So all factory overhead, you make use of the second button. As the title says, factory overhead. Whenever you're buying additional materials, so if we want to restock our materials, we make use of product restock because we're restocking our products. If you're receiving payments from customers, so the template supports credit transactions. So it enables you to track the total number of suppliers that you currently owe money and the total number of customers that owe you money. So to add payment, you make use of this button. To delete expense, you make use of this button. So first of all, we're going to add product restocks because we want to enter the starting units of all our raw materials. To do that, we'll simply click on the Add Product Restock button. It pops up a form. First, we indicate the dates that we purchased this raw material. So most likely you're going to backdate because these are products you already have in your store. So let's assume we purchased them in the month of February. So this is the dates. The template will automatically enter today's dates. You can change the dates, the month, or the year. So I'm going to backdate this to the 1st of February. So I changed the dates to 1, the month to 2 for February, and the year to 2018. Next, I indicate the status. Now there are 2 statuses that are supported. Either credit transactions. For credit transactions, the supplier is going to be owed money. For paid transaction means you paid up front, so the supplier is not owed any money. So I'm going to go ahead and click on paid. The product category by default is product restock. You can't change that. The template will automatically list it. And for expense detail, this is where you supply or you select the material that you're buying units from. So notice that all our materials are listed. So as you enter materials to the material section, this drop-down list will be populated. So first I'm going to add flour. Recall that our flour is in kilograms. So here I indicate the unit cost per kilogram. So let's assume that 1 kilogram of flour cost me 600 naira. And I'm going to buy 30 kilograms. So once I enter 30, the template will automatically calculate the total cost, multiplying the 2. If I have suppliers, I select the supplier, but right now we have no supplier in our supplier section. Later on in the video, I'm going to show you how you can add suppliers to this database, okay? So I'm going to skip the supplier, click on enter, and now I've told the template that we've purchased 30 kilograms of flour. And this is the cost. The transaction is paid. So if I go back to my material section, you notice that our balance has automatically increased to 30. So the template has recognized 30 units. In the same way, if I add for another product, now to save time, so I'm not going to waste so much time in this video, I'm going to add only for 2 products. So only for our flour and for the next product, I'm going to repeat the process, clicking add restock, selecting that this is paid. I'm equally going to backdate to February 1st. And here I'm going to select the next product. I could use butter. Recall my butter is in sticks. Let's assume each stick of butter is 200 naira, and I'm going to buy 10 sticks, which is 2,000. Once I click enter, it's going to store it. So you simply repeat this process for all of your materials, entering the starting quantities. You enter the date in which you purchased it, the units you purchased, and the units cost. So now we've entered 10 units of, or 10 sticks of flour. So if I go back to my material section, we should see that butter, now has 10. Okay, so 10 sticks of butter, 30 kg of flour. Okay, so you simply repeat this process to document additional units for other products. So I'm just going to pause the video and I'm going to quickly add for other units so that I don't take so much time. So now I've added all the ingredients except for vanilla extract. So you notice that I use the same date, which is the 1st of April 2018. They're all product restock because I'm restocking my raw material product. And under expense detail is going to list the material that is being purchased. Okay, so we have our quantities here, we have our unit price, and our total cost under the paid column is entered. If it's a credit transaction, it's going to be listed under the credits column. But for now, we're going to make it all paid transactions until I add suppliers to our database. So if I go back to my material section, you notice that now most of the materials, except for the vanilla, now have starting quantity. So we have 10 units of chocolate, 40 kg of sugar, 30 units of egg, 10 sticks of sugar, 10 units of baking powder, and 30 kg of flour. So that's how you add restocks. This column will automatically update. Okay, so now that we have units, we can now create, or we can now produce final products. So let's assume that we go to the factory. So to add productions, you make use of the production section. Okay, so whenever additional or new products are produced from your factory, you make use of the production section to document it to this template. Recall that for now, our 2 products have 0 units. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the production section to create a production. By clicking on the label, it opens up that section of the template. So now we're in the production section of the template. So this is where you document all production activities. So whenever you produce additional finished goods, you document it here. To do that, you simply click on the new production button, pops up a form. First, you indicate the production date. Now by default, Excel is going to enter today's date, though you can modify the date, the month, or the year. The only thing you can't do is to enter a future date. So if I enter 2019, notice it tells me invalid date. So you can't enter a future transaction. You can enter a past transaction or a current transaction. So I'm going to change this to February. So all of my transactions for now are in the month of February 2018. Next, I indicate the product that was produced. Vanilla cakes. Let's assume that on this day, we produced 3 units of vanilla cakes. Lastly, you enter the selling price per unit of vanilla cake. So let's assume we sell it for 30,000 each. Okay, so now I've successfully entered the 4 values. Once I click enter, it's going to tell me the production is added, and we should see it on the first row. So notice that vanilla cakes, 3 units on the 10th of February, and this is the unit selling price. Now the template will automatically reduce your material quantity that was used to create the 3 units. So recall that in the requirements section, we already specified the recipe. So we already told the template that for 1 unit of vanilla cake, this is the quantity of each raw material that we need. So using this data, the template will automatically multiply the quantity by 3 and reduce it from the material section. It's equally going to list it, if you go back to the production section, in the usage summary. So if I click on usage summary, it's going to tell you the total raw material that has been used to create 3 vanilla cakes. So once I click on unit summary, notice these are the 5 ingredients for the vanilla cake. This is the date it was indeed produced, and these are the quantities. So 1.5 kg of flour, 0.75 units of baking powder, 6 sticks of sugar, 9 units of eggs, and 1.5 kg of sugar. And this is equally the average unit price per units of each of the raw materials. So it will automatically list it for you using the information you specified here. And in addition to that, it's equally going to reduce the balance in the material section. So notice that in the expense section, we started with 30 kg of flour. So 30 kg now minus 1.5, which has been used to create the vanilla cake. Recall it says 1.5 has been used, meaning that our flour should now be 28.5. So if you go to the materials section, you notice that flour is now 28.5. In the same way, our baking powder is 9.25. Because we started with, recall baking powder, we purchased 10. So we purchased 10 units of baking powder, and we told the template that for each vanilla cake, we need only 0.25. So that's 1/4 of each sachet. So since we're producing 3 vanilla cakes, it will be 0.25 times 3, which is 0.75, giving us a material balance of 9.25. So the template will automatically do that for all your ingredients. If you have 20 ingredients, it will automatically do the math for you instantly. The same with our eggs. Notice we have only 21 eggs left. We started with 30 eggs. Recall we bought 30 eggs. And for each vanilla cake, we used 3 eggs because we specified in the requirement section that eggs is 3. Since we're producing 3 cakes, to be 3 times 3, which is 9, 30 minus 9 gives us a balance of 21, excuse me. So it does this for all of your raw materials, okay? Automatically for you using data you specified in the requirement section. Okay, so that's how the production section works. The moment you click on new production, you enter the date, you specify the product that's being produced. For instance, chocolate cake, 1. Let me enter the selling price of 20,000. Once you click enter, the template will automatically reduce all the raw materials that has been used to create 1. So notice if I go back to my usage summary, we should now see additional 6 rows. There we go. All the raw material that has been used on the 2nd of July to create 1 chocolate cake. So these are all the units. So our eggs now should have further reduced by 2. So before our eggs, I think were 21. So if we go to materials now, it should have further reduced from 21 to 19. So to continue reducing your balance in stock automatically. So whenever you buy, this will increase. Whenever you produce, this will reduce. So at any point in time, you know the balance of each of your materials you have in store. And you can always go to the production section to see all that you've produced. You can always go to the usage summary section to see all the raw materials that have been used. Okay, so that's how dynamic the template is. It will list the product, the raw materials used, and the respective quantities. Okay, so that's a summary of how the production section works. It just enables you monitor your production process. Okay, so we've covered the new production button, which is to add a new production. The usage summary will take you to the usage summary section, which will automatically list all the raw materials used. And the delete button is used to delete a production. Now, we've covered the production and requirements. Now we're going to go to the sales section. So you can only sell your final products. We've told the template that we've created or we've produced 3 vanilla cakes and 1 chocolate cake. Meaning if I go to my product section, it should have increased to 3 and 1. And equally, this is the selling price that I entered. Okay, so now we have 3 cakes that we can sell and 1 chocolate cake. So going to my sales section, I can now add a sale. Now, to add a sale, you simply click on the new sale button. Okay, so recall I clicked on the sales button on the navigation pane. So once you click on sales, it takes you to that section. In the upper left-hand corner, we have the title that tells you this is where you document your sales. To the right of this, we have 3 buttons: to add a new sale, to add payment, so the template supports credit transactions, to delete a sale. We have our navigation pane at the top with all the buttons. And below this, we have our sales table where all sales transactions will be listed. So to add a new sale, you simply click on new sale. And now you simply supply the values. By default, Excel is going to enter today as a transaction date, but you can modify the values. I'm going to change this to February also, so that when we're generating our reports, they're all going to be in the month of February. Next, you indicate the status. The template enables you to track customers that are owing you money so that at any point in time, you know the total amount each customer is owing you. And to do that, you make use of the credit functionality. Now, for you to use the credit functionality, you need to have stored customers to your database. So right now, notice if I click this drop-down list, there are no customers. So later on, I'm going to show you how you can add customers so that you can be able to use the credit functionality. But for now, we're going to enter paid, enter a random customer's name. Next, we indicate the product the customer is buying. Now, once you select the product, the template will automatically tell you the units you have so that you can't sell more than you have. So we have only 3 vanilla cakes. Notice if I change this to chocolate, it tells me I have only 1 chocolate cake. It will equally tell me the selling price based on what I entered. Recall that our vanilla cake is 30,000. Now you can change this value if you want to sell it at a higher price to the customer or at a lower price, so you can modify this. But by default, it will return the value you supplied in the production section. So the average selling price for this particular product. Next, you indicate the quantity that this customer is buying, let's say 2. The template will calculate the total, you click enter, and it's going to store the sale. So notice in the first row, it indicates that Rose Random purchased 2 units of vanilla cakes. And since she paid for it, the amount is in the paid column. If it's a credit transaction, the amount will be listed here and the status will be credit. So now if we go to our product section, our vanilla cake should have reduced by 2 units. So notice products, we now have only 1 vanilla cake. So that's how the template will automatically reduce your product balance and your material balance when you make productions. Okay, so all the sections are interconnected. If I add another sale, I simply click on the button. I enter the date of the sale. I'm equally going to make this February, but this is going to be the 30th, the 27th. It's going to be paid. This can be John Random. This can be the chocolate cake. It tells us we have only 1 left, so I'm going to sell only the one we have, and I'm going to click on enter. So now we've made 2 sales in the month of February. The first for 30,000, the second for 20,000, okay, per unit. So that's how the sales section works. The second button is used to add payments when customers buy goods on credit. I'm going to come back and explain how that works. To delete a sale, you simply need to click on the customer's name and you click on delete. So the template is going to ask, are you sure you want to delete this transaction on the 27th of February, John? If you do, you click yes. If you don't, you click no. So that's pretty much how the sales section works. So whenever your finished goods are being sold to customers, you document that information here. Now, next we go back to the expense section. Okay, so we've covered the materials, the products, the production, the requirements, and the sales. Now, we've covered partly the expense section. I'm going to go back to that section so we can cover the other types of expenses. So recall I clicked on expenses and it opened up that section of the template. So as mentioned earlier, we have several types of expenses. We have indirect expenses that are not linked to production. So things like your advertising cost, your office building, your administrative staff and other personnel that are not directly linked to production. So to enter all indirect expenses, you make use of the new expense button. You simply click on the button, it pops up a form. It enters today's date by default. I'm equally going to change this to February. All my transactions will be in the month of February. Next, I indicate paid or credit. For now, I'm going to use paid for all my transactions. Under category, there are some defined options. Now, later on in the video, I'm going to show you how you can change this to categories that better suit your business. But these are the default categories we have. So advertising, like if you're advertising on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Office expenses like stationaries, rent, that's your office building, not the factory, but your actual office building where you have your admin personnel. Salaries for non-production staff. Transportation and taxis and all of that, utilities, phone credits, and all other miscellaneous items. So these are your indirect expenses. So you simply click on the category. Next, you enter a brief detail pertaining to this. So I can say, for instance, Facebook April campaign, or February rather. The unit cost, so let's assume I spent 20,000. Quantity will be 1, total is 20, and I simply click on enter. So now I've entered an indirect expense in the month of February. Okay, so that's how the indirect expense functionality works. You simply select the category, you enter a brief description, the unit cost, and then you click on enter. Next, we have the factory overhead. So these are direct expenses. So expenses that you incur in the course of production. Okay, so things like, for instance, labor wages. So this is currently a factory. So we have several chefs and bakers. So their salary is going to be captured here. Factory expenses like, for instance, what we use for baking, the equipment maintenance. So for example, we have the mixer, we have several ovens, all equipments that are used directly in producing my cakes. I enter it here. Rent of the factory, so that's the actual bakery. Fuel or gas, maybe the cooking gas that I use to cook, or the gas for the oven, anything that is directly linked to manufacturing the cakes that I sell. Insurance if I have any, and other overhead. You can equally change these categories to better suit your business. I'm going to show you how to do that later on in the video. Okay, so you simply select the category, you give a brief description, works the same way. You enter the unit cost, the quantity, and you click on enter. Product restock, we already covered this. This is if you're buying additional raw materials. You simply click on product restock, and here you select the raw material that you're currently purchasing. Payment is used when the supplier is paying you. When you're paying the supplier. So if you buy any of these items on credit and you're ready to pay, you make use of the payment button. And to delete expense, you simply click on expense category, click on delete, and then you click on yes. Okay, so that's pretty much how the expense section works. Later on in the video, I'm going to add other categories so that we can better appreciate the manufacturing account and the profit and loss statements. Okay, so now that we've covered all or most of the icons on the navigation pane, we go ahead to the reports section. Now to open this up, you simply click on reports, and this takes us to our reports dashboard. So now we're in the reports dashboard. So this has a total of 8 buttons. We have some reports here and we have some databases here. So we have the customer database. This is where you can view and add new customers. The supplier database, where you can equally view and add suppliers. We have the sales summary. So this is pretty much a report that enables you filter your sales by months and by year. So later on, you're probably going to have so many sales across multiple calendar months. So this section is going to be clustered. But with this report, you can be able to easily select the calendar month and year, and it will only display sales that fall within that period. This is the expense summary. It's similar to the sales summary. The only difference is that you can filter your expenses per month and per year. The manufacturing account, this is a financial statement that enables you to see your monthly, quarterly, and annual cost report. So this will tell you the production cost, the cost you incurred to produce your finished goods. The income statement, this is equally a financial report that shows you pretty much your total cost, expense, and income for a period of time. The two work together. So when you generate a manufacturing account, it will equally generate an income statement. Monthly usage summary. Now the monthly usage summary works with the usage summary section here. Recall that in the production section, we have the usage summary section. As you keep producing additional finished goods, this section is going to have multiple rows across multiple months. For instance, we have February here, we have July. So this report enables you to see usage for a particular month. So I can be able to see all raw materials I used in January, all I used in February, and so on. So you can filter your raw material usage. And the last report enables you to see your production summary on a monthly basis. Now to use any of these reports, except for the first 2 databases, you need to click on the refresh all button. So all this does is that it refreshes all the reports, pulling data from the source sheets. So to pull all the sales from the sales sheet to refresh this report. It will pull all expense transactions to refresh this report. It will pull all production transactions to refresh this report, and so on. So once you click, to just automatically refresh all the reports. Doesn't take too long. Notice it's complete. Now you can open up your reports. So first I'm going to go to my sales summary. Now once you click on sales summary, this is the sales summary. You notice at the top we have 2 filters. You can filter by year, you can filter by months. So it's going to list all transactions. Right now we have only 2 sales and the 2 sales are listed. You can equally filter by status. So if you have credit transactions, you can be able to see only paid or only credit. Now, before going through these sections, I'm first going to add suppliers and add customers so that I can be able to demonstrate the credit functionalities in both sections. So going to the customer section, to add a customer, you simply click on the first row, enter the customer's name, for instance, Rose Random. If you know the customer's phone number and email, you can supply it there. It tells you that the customer owes you nothing. I'm equally going to add John Random as the second customer, and I'm going to leave the phone and email blank. You notice it equally says 0. I'm going to also go to our supplier section. I'm going to add 2 suppliers. This is just going to be Mike Flour Supplier, just generic names. And the next supplier is just going to be Williams, and this is the person that supplies me with butter supplier. Okay, so now I've added 2 suppliers and I've added 2 customers. So now first I'm going to go to my expense section and I'm going to add a credit transaction. Okay, so I'm going to go to my expenses. Let's assume that I'm going to buy flour on credit. So I simply click on product restock. I enter the date I'm buying the flour. I'm going to make this transaction in March. I'm going to enter credit here. And one thing the template does is whenever you enter credit transaction, you must enter a supplier. So if I skip all the values, so I enter the flour I'm buying, let's assume I also bought it for 600, I bought 10 units, and I click enter, you notice the template tells me that all credit expenses should have a supplier. So you cannot use the credit functionality without adding suppliers to the supplier section. So now I'm forced to select the supplier. So I'll go ahead here and select Mike Flour Supplier, click on enter, and it's going to enter the credit transaction. So you notice it's in red and it's in the credit row. So this way, at a glance, you know this is the credit transaction. These are paid transactions. And the status says credit. If I scroll to the right, we'll equally see the supplier's name, Mike Flower Supplier. Okay, so that's how you add credit transactions. And if we go back to the supplier section, we should see that there's a 6,000 outstanding under Mike. So going back to my reports and supplier, you notice it says 6,000. So I know at a glance that I'm owing Mike 6,000 naira. How the credit functionality works. And whenever I'm ready to pay, I simply go to the expenses, click on add payments. I enter the date I'm paying. I'm quickly going to make this March. Let's assume that some days after, on the 5th. The moment I select Mike, the template will tell me the total amount I'm owing at a glance. Notice if I change this to Williams, it says 0 because I'm not owing Williams anything, but I'm owing Mike 6,000. So let's assume I want to pay half of it, 3,000. Click enter. It's going to add it. The dates tell me this is a supplier payment. This is the amount. So if I go back to my supplier section, we should see that the balance is reduced to 3,000. So from the supplier section, you can know at a glance the total amount you're owing each of your suppliers. And it works the same way in the customer section. So if I go to my sales and I go to my new sales, I'm going to add sales on credits. I'm going to make this credit. I'm going to make this the month of March. I'm going to select Rose. Let's assume that Rose is buying the vanilla cake. Do we still have? Okay, we still have one. So Rose is buying the only one we have on credit. So once I click enter, it's going to store the credit transaction. You notice the amount is under the credit row. The status says credit. And if I go to my customer section, Rose should be owing us 30,000. So if I go to reports, customers, you notice that the outstanding is 30,000 naira. So that's how dynamic the template is. And when Rose pays, you simply go back to the sales. You click on add payments. You enter the dates that Rose is paying. So let's make it the same, just another day, the same month of March. You select Rose, the template tells you she's owing you 30,000. If you select John, the template tells you he's owing you nothing. I'm going to select Rose back, and let's assume she pays the entire 30,000. So once I click enter, it's going to list the payments, customer payments, Rose random, 30,000 under the paid column. Now if I go back to my reports, you should see that she owes us now nothing, 0. Okay, so this just makes you easily track your accounts payable and account receivable. So you know the customers you're owing money, you know the customers that are owing you, and the suppliers that you're owing money. Okay, so that's pretty much how the two sections here work with the credit functionality. If you're not using the credit functionality, you can ignore these two sections. Now, going back to our sales, now if I click on sales, you notice that the transaction we just added is not here, because we haven't refreshed the report. So that's why I said that whenever you want to open your reports, you need to click on the refresh all button. And now once I click on sales summary, we should see the March transactions. So notice now we have March transactions and February transactions. So if you want to see only credit transaction, you simply click on credit. And once you click on, for instance, credit, it's going to display only the credit transactions. Once you click on paid, it's going to display only the paid transactions. Okay, and if you want to see both, you simply click on the funnel in the upper right hand corner. Once you click on that funnel, it's going to display both credit and paid transactions. And you can equally filter by year and month. Okay, so that's the advantage of the reports. So if I want to see, I simply click on the drop down, select the year I want to see. Under months, I repeat the same thing. So let's say I zoom, I want to see only February transactions. So once I click February, I click OK. It's going to show me only transactions in the month of February 2018. So you notice that all March transactions are now hidden. So you can print out this report, you can file it. It's advisable to print out the report on a monthly basis, have your physical file where you document it, or save as a PDF and store it on, your computer on a cloud storage. Okay. So this is, for instance, February. You can change this to March. Click OK. It's going to list all transactions in the month of March. You can see only paid transactions in March or credit transactions in March. And here we can see both. Okay, so that's how the income section works. It enables you filter your sales by month and year. In the same way, you can filter by customer. So for instance, if I click all customer here, all months, and I click all year, so it shows all the transactions across all. If I want to see for only a particular customer, I simply click on this arrow to the right of the customer name. So once I click, you notice it's going to list all the customers. So if I select only Rose Random, it will list only Rose Random's transactions. If I select only John, it's going to list only John Random's transactions. So I can equally filter by customer, by product name, or by any other category here. Okay, but it's advisable that whenever you filter, always remember to unfilter by clicking select all or clear filter so that it displays everything, so that you don't forget to unfilter when you're generating your reports. Okay, so you can filter by year, by month, or by any of the other categories here. So that's the first report. The next report is our expense report. Works exactly the same way. It's going to list all the transactions. You can filter by year, by month. It's going to list it in chronological order, so from January up until December. At the bottom, we have our grand total. So, this is the total amount across all months and years. If I want to see for only February, I click February OK. It's going to tell me the total for February is 54,900. So you can filter by month, by year. You can equally filter paid or credit transaction and by category. So if you want to know the total amount you spent on buying raw materials, you simply click on product restock and it tells you this is the total amount you spent on product restock within this period, on advertising or in any other category that is currently available. Okay, and to clear the filter, you simply click on the funnel in the upper right hand corner. Once you click, it's going to display all the categories. The next report we have is the manufacturing. I'm going to skip the two. I'm first going to go to the monthly usage summary. Now this works exactly the same like the previous two at the top. It just enables you filter by year and month. So you notice that these are the two material usage. So for vanilla that we produced on the 10th, these are the raw materials we used. These are the quantities, the unit cost, and the average cost. So from this report, we can already know that this is the total cost of raw materials that we used for this vanilla cake that we produced on this day. The total overall is at the bottom. And we can equally filter this by products. So you can select the product here. You can filter by months. And you can also filter by year. Okay, so this just makes you enable you play with your data. So you can even be able to compare the cost of producing vanilla cake in February versus the cost in another month. Okay, so that's this section here. Next, we have our production summary. And this just enables you filter also all production activities by month and by year. So you know the total amounts or the total number of vanilla cakes you produced in a particular year, or chocolate cakes, depending on the products that you produce. Okay, so those are the 4 reports that are refreshed with this button here. Okay, you can see your sales summary, expense summary, usage summary, and your production summary. Now we go to the manufacturing account. Now simply click on it, it opens it up. Now this just enables you to see your production cost. So you notice at the top, your company name is going to be here. At the bottom, this is going to tell you the type of report that is being generated. Now, this report is filtered by two conditions. The year you specify here determines the report that is generated. So notice this is 2018. So that means that any report you're generating will use 2018 data. You can always change the value here to any year. So the template is dynamic. You can generate a report for last year, for this year, for next year. Pretty much the choice is yours. So it's very flexible. Here you indicate the report type. So if I want to generate a report for the current month, so we're currently in the month of July, all I need to do here is to select month, and it's going to use the current month. So notice it tells me at the top that manufacturing account for the month ended on the 31st of July 2018. If I change this to quarter, it's going to generate a report for the first quarter. So that will be for the period ended. So it takes a while to load, but once it updates, we're going to be able to see the value there. That's going to be manufacturing account for the quarter ended 31st of March 2018. If I change this to second quarter, that value there is going to change to June, the last day in June. Same way, third quarter, fourth quarter. Okay, so depending on the report type you select, that is what is going to determine the type of reports that is going to be generated. And if you click annual, it's going to generate a report for the entire year. So pretty much the position, that's your position in terms of materials as day of the year, which is the 31st of December 2018. Okay, so that's how this report works. It just enables you generate your manufacturing account for a particular period. So first we're going to do this for the first quarter, or let's do it. Most of our transactions are in February, which falls in the first quarter. So I'm going to select the first quarter, which is going to be January, February, March, the first 3 months of the year. Now the template is going to tell us our raw materials, the opening stock as at the beginning of this quarter, which will be the last day, the 31st of December 2017. The purchases we made within the first quarter is going to tell us here, and the closing stock as at the 31st of March 2018 is going to tell us here. The difference, that's the opening plus the purchases minus the closing stock, will give you the raw materials consumed as at the 31st of March 2018. The direct labor wages is going to sum up all the labor wages you indicated in the expense section. If I scroll to the bottom, we have our total factory overhead. These are the categories: maintenance, rent, fuel, and so on. The total factory overhead, and then the overall production cost for the period you specify. Now recall that I said we can change the drop-down list. So the values here, factory expense, equipment maintenance, are the same values that we saw earlier on in the expense section. So if I go back to the expense section quickly, you notice that the drop-down list in factory overhead is the same thing here. So this is factory equipment maintenance. So if you want to change the values here, you simply modify it from the manufacturing account statement. Okay? So if I quickly do that, so I'm going to quickly modify just for demonstration purposes. So I'm going to change one of the values here. I'm going to change the first one to random. Okay? Just for demonstration purposes. Okay, so now we have random, then equipment maintenance. So now if I go back to my expense section, you'll notice that we should now have random listed. So going back to my reports, going to my expenses, you will see that the first option now is random. Okay, so that's how you change the values in the drop-down list here. So I'm just going to undo that. So in the template, that's in the generic template you're going to receive, it's going to have the default value, which will be factory expenses. So once you click on refresh, the template will automatically list the amounts for each category. So once I click refresh, it's going to take a while to load. And notice it tells us the opening stock as at the last day in 2017 was 0, because we didn't have any stock as at then. What we purchased within the first quarter is what? 40,900. And we can confirm this. So the first quarter, this is from January, February, March. This is the worth of raw materials that we purchased. So if we go back to our expense section, we can confirm that. Recall that all the February transactions, including the March transactions, all fall within the first quarter. So pretty much the sum of all we purchased here should give us the value that we obtained, minus advertising. So I'm going to highlight everything so that Excel can do the maths for me. So I've highlighted all the values. If you look at the bottom of the screen, you notice the value is 40,900 indeed. Okay, so where my mouse is, 4,900. So this is all what we purchased in the first quarter. Now, if I add another purchase for the month of April, just to show you that April is not going to be included. So I'm going to add April. I'm just going to add baking powder. Let's assume we bought it for 300, we bought 10 units, just random values for demonstration purposes. You'll notice that even though we've added in the month of April, baking powder, this is not going to be added because this is outside the first quarter. So if I refresh that report, you notice the values will not change because it's going to show me only purchases made in the first quarter, which is from the 1st of January 2018 to the 31st of March 2018. So once I click refresh, you notice the values remain unaltered. In the same way, it tells us our closing stock is 38,155. The difference is 2,745. So that means that this is the raw materials that was used to produce the products that were produced within this period. And we can confirm that by going to our production section. And if we go to our usage summary, alternatively, we can just simply use the usage reports. This is a faster way. So here, you notice the total. If we highlight the 4 values here, so I'm not going to highlight July, but if I highlight the total cost for vanilla cake within that period, because vanilla cake is the only thing we produced in that month, if you add it all up, you notice the total at the bottom tells you 2,745 naira, sorry, 2745, where my mouse is. So that's how the template was able to arrive at that value, 2745. Okay, because that's the raw materials that was used to produce the 3 vanilla cakes that we did. Direct labor wages is 0 because we haven't indicated direct wages. If I go back to my report on my expenses and I just quickly add direct, just quickly for demonstration purposes, I'm going to make this the month of January, February, March. I can make it January. It's going to fall, once it falls within that quarter, it's going to be added. So I'm going to make this direct wages. I'm just going to say baker's salary. Let's assume there are 2 bakers. Let's assume your salary together is 500,000. It's only one. Once I click on enter, it's going to store that as an overhead. So you notice that's direct labor wages. So if I refresh the report now, we should see that it should increase by the value that I just added. So you notice direct labor wages is now 500,000. Okay, and that's for the first quarter. If I change this to the second quarter and I refresh, you notice that this value is not going to be there because in the second quarter we haven't paid direct labor wages. Okay, so that's how dynamic the manufacturing account is. The same with all these categories here. To automatically sum it up once you select it, tell you the total factory overhead and the total production cost at the entire bottom. Okay, so that's how the template works. In the second quarter, for instance, you notice that there is no production activity. So we haven't produced any product, and so that's why our raw materials consumed is 0. If I scroll to the bottom, you notice production cost is 0. Okay, and if I quickly add a production for that quarter, so any month in that quarter, which can be from April up until June. So if I quickly go and I'm just going to, this is just for demonstration purposes. I'm going to go to my production. I'm going to add a new production. I'm going to make this in the month of May. This is going to be my chocolate cake. Let's assume I produced 1 and I'm going to sell it for 20,000. So I've added a production for the month of May. It's going to be listed there. If I go to my usage summary, we should now see raw materials for May. So there we go, May. That's automatically added all the raw materials used to produce 1 chocolate cake in May. So now if I refresh the manufacturing accounts, we should now see the raw materials consumed should increase to 1,960. And to confirm this is correct, the quickest way is to simply use your usage report. This usage report, recall I need to refresh it. So once you refresh the report, if you open it up, it's going to list all the usage per day. So if we scroll, this is the February, this is the July, we have the May here. We can sort it in ascending order. Yeah, there we go. So we have February, we have May, we have July. And if we sum up all that was used in May, if I highlight all the values and we look at the bottom of the screen, you notice the total is indeed 1,960. So that's how the template arrives at the production cost for the raw materials. Now there are other production costs. So these are what we call the prime cost in accounting. It's made up of the raw materials used. We have the direct labor wages, and some companies have direct expenses. Okay, so that's the prime cost. And we equally have the total overhead, which are things like factory expenses, fuel, insurance, and so on. Now the sum of the two is what gives you the overall production cost, which is 1,960. So this is how the manufacturing account works. Okay, and you can generate it for any of the accounting periods here. For the current months, for the first quarter, second, third, fourth, or for annual. Annual is going to sum it all up from January up until December. Okay, so the next report, or the last report, is our income statement. So this is the profit and loss report. This works with the financial statements. Okay, so you notice you cannot change the statement type. The statement type that's here is what you selected in the manufacturing account. So if I go back to the manufacturing account, for instance, and I change this to first quarter, I refresh. If I go back to my production, profit and loss statements, you notice it's first quarter. So the two statements work together. To use this profit and loss statement, you need to select the values from the manufacturing accounts. The reason for that is the production cost is also needed here. So the two reports work together. So now if I refresh this report, this is going to tell me the profit and loss. This is the total amount I generated in the months in this quarter. That's from the 1st of January to the 31st of March 2018. That's 110,000. We can confirm that if we go to our sales section and we sum up all the sales that was made pretty much February, March, this all falls in the first quarter. So if you sum up all the sales together, you notice it's 110. That's the 2 vanilla cakes, the 1 chocolate cake, and the 1 vanilla cake that was sold within this period. All sums up, if you look at the bottom of the screen, to 110,000. Okay, so that's how it obtains the sales. If I go back to that report again, next it tells us that the opening stock is 0. Recall we had no raw materials as that's the beginning of the first quarter. So as at the 31st of December 2017, we had no raw materials. The cost of production is a bit over 500,000. The reason why it's 500,000 is recall we added the salary for the bakers. So if we go back to the manufacturing account, I think we added 500,000 as the baker's salary. There we go. So the total is 502,745. So it extracts the data from the manufacturing accounts and displays it in a profit and loss statement. So that's how we have the cost of production. The closing of finished goods, a negative value. Then we have because of my fictitious amounts, then we have the total costs, which sums everything all up together. We have the gross profit, which is the difference between the two. We made a loss of over 400,000. We have the over operating expenses like advertising, the indirect cost pretty much. It sums everything all up together, 20,000. Then it tells you your net ordinary income. So this is how the profit and loss statement works. It obtains data from all sections. So it's a whole garbage in, garbage out concept. It pretty much goes through all your sales transactions, your expenses, and tells you at any point in time if you're making a profit or if you're making a loss. Now you need to ensure that whenever you're adding productions, you have the raw materials necessary for that production. If not, you're going to have negative values for your materials. Okay, so always ensure that whenever you buy additional raw materials, you document it using the expense section. Whenever you produce, you document it using the production section. So that way your data makes sense. Okay, so that's a summary of how the manufacturing accounts work. This is a generic template. It can always be modified. Additional functionalities can be added to meet your requirements, but this is the generic template. Thanks and do take care.